about a really nice day in May, and I'm in 8th grade. And we're at a track meet in Dubuque, Iowa. And what essentially happened was we were down to the last relay, a 4-person relay, and I was the third leg of the 4 people on the relay. And things are going really well. Again, 8th grade, everything's drama. You guys remember 8th grade? And so, yeah, exactly, right? What essentially happened was we get to the end of my leg, I go to hand off the baton, and we drop the baton. And what happened was we got disqualified from the relay, and I thought the world was coming to an end. Well, little do you know about the story was the fact that my grandpa on my dad's side was literally dying of cancer and would die within about 48 hours. And so being in 8th grade, going through all the emotions of losing someone and then having that dramatic life thing happen of dropping a baton really kind of shaped my life. The interesting part of the story is when this happened, it was Mother's Day weekend, and our relay was on Saturday, and I grew up in a church where on Mother's Day weekend, everyone under 8th grade sings a song that's kind of for the moms, and during the interlude, you go out and give your mom a flower. Well, the song we sang that day was Brian Adams' song, Everything I Do For You. And of course, I went to give my mom the flower. I'm in tears, she's in tears, and it's just a very emotional time. What happened later that day was we went to Cedar Rapids, and we had to tell Grandpa our last goodbyes. And for those of you that have ever had that kind of life experience, it's really kind of surreal. It's very real at the same time as well too. And what essentially happened was I remember telling Grandpa goodbye, of course being in tears, and I walked out the room and I saw my dad on the edge of my grandpa's bed holding his hand, literally sobbing. And that was probably the first time I'd ever seen my dad really cry. My grandpa passed away the next morning, on Monday morning, and what essentially happened was we had our final track meet of the night, that Monday night. And so again, lots of emotions, lots of life playing out. We ended up that day running the relay again. We ended up winning the relay. My short, little chubby body now, back then, was pretty lean, and I ran a record split and had a great day. And it's one of those things where when we went to the funeral home and they closed the casket, I remember my dad looking at me and saying, Mitch, you have to have pride in everything you do and make the Peyton name proud. And that's been a moment in time that has stuck with me and driven me on a daily basis as far as making sure I'm doing things that would make other people proud. It's one of those things where I've been old enough to know that a lot of times people don't always do things for themselves, but they will do a lot for other people. And this has really been kind of a spur for me as far as taking action in my life. The title of my talk today is Leadership and Motivation from my perspective. And what I would share with you is that I think there's a big difference in one's life when you have motivation versus inspiration. A lot of people are motivated to lose weight. What happens is that life happens and you may end up losing your motivation. When you're inspired to do something, you'll do it at all costs. And you'll do it without sacrifice. And you'll do it because you know it's the right thing to do. And so as you think about where you're heading in your life, I would challenge you to think about what truly inspires you at this point. What's the thing that really gets your juices flowing that you want to accomplish on a daily basis? Because once you understand what you're inspired by, it makes the rest of the course really easy. Question?
Because I'm very inspired in art and plan to have my very own business. Like my dad owns his own restaurant. It burnt down, and but he reopened it. And I'm planning to have my own art studio and have my own working routine, making money and being professional, and take the responsibility and who you are and what you do. And for instance, I make my artwork more professional, day by day, hour by hour.
now for 9 years. I'm a wealth management advisor, and I will share with you that my family has been a really big part of my life at this point. As mentioned in my intro, my wife and I have 4 kids. The interesting part of that story is that we actually had 2 of our children before we got married. And so, again, I'm kind of a story guy, people, and so it's one of those things where the funny part of the story is that I live in a town of 5,000 people. So everybody knows everybody, including like your dog's names, okay? It's just small. And what essentially happened was we told my folks on a Saturday that we were expecting my oldest with my girlfriend then, now my wife, and it was a pretty dramatic situation again. Well, the funny story is that the next day my brother told my mom and dad that he was expecting his first child as well too, unwed as well. And so in a town of 5,000 people, everybody's talking. And so for like the next week, everyone was like, hey, did you hear about Mitch? No, it's Ryan, who's my brother. No, I think it's Mitch. Well, actually, it was both of us, okay? And so it's one of those things where one could have looked at that as a huge trial and an adversity, and essentially what's happened is it's been one of the best blessings that's ever happened to me. So kind of a funny little side story as well too. As you start to think about your leadership and motivation and you move on down the road into your career, there were 3 I's that became very important to me as I chose my career path. The first one was I wanted some income, okay? I don't know about you guys, but my hunch is that you probably owe some people some money at this point, whether it be for a vehicle or college debt. And so usually there's a goal of wanting to get out of that debt, so to speak. One of the things that I wanted was to have the potential to have some income to live the lifestyle we want to. I had some advice a couple years ago from an older gentleman that said, Mitch, if you could tell young people anything, tell them to figure out what lifestyle they want first, and then figure out what they want to be. What happens is a lot of people tend to figure out what they want to be first, and then match the lifestyle to it, and it doesn't always jive real well. So again, think about that as you're thinking about your next phase. My second I was independence, which to me meant time and freedom to choose what I wanted to do on a daily basis. You know, if you think about it, I always kind of pick on doctors. Doctors have a ton of income, but they don't really have a ton of independence. If someone needs to deliver a baby at 3 o'clock in the morning, the doctor's got to show up, okay? And he probably has to show back up at the office at 8 or 9 the next morning to do his daily routine. That to me was not a ton of independence. So I'm a big, big fan of thinking about what you want your lifestyle to look like as you look at your career as well too. The last I for me was impact. And what impact means to me was, am I going to be able to help people put them in a better position than they currently are today with my help? I see a lot of people that do a lot of jobs and make a lot of money, and they may have some independence, but they may not be helping society. And that was a big, big bucket for me, was wanting to make sure that I was contributing to other people and having impact in their lives as well too. So as you start to think about your next phase, if I can give you any advice from a 36-year-old guy, one of the things that I would encourage you to think about is make sure you're pursuing a career and not a job. The reason I always bring that up is the fact that as you start to think about your path in life, most people think about a job, and a job can be very short-term. A career has a much more long-term connotation. And so as you think about where you're heading and what you want to do, I think the career becomes a whole lot better focus as far as, you know, maybe I take this job today, but it helps me get to where I want to get to in my career. If you look at it just as a job to get a paycheck, I guarantee you will not have as much fulfillment as you would if you were pursuing what you want to pursue as far as your goals and things. So that would be a big thing to consider as well too. The last thing is one of the hard lessons I've had to learn in the sales side of things, and I think it applies to life as well too, is that understand that if you're very considerate to people, all a no means, whether it be from an employer, a college, a girlfriend, all no means is not now. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but essentially what it boils down to is that if you have persistence towards something and you understand why someone told you no, the odds are it may just mean not now. It may be your first career choice that you want to get into. And you go through the interview process and they say, you know what, we found someone more qualified. That doesn't mean no forever. That just means no, not now. And so as you think about your life experiences and where you're at with things, just remember that no doesn't really mean no. It just says not now. Okay? I'm a big, big fan of that as well too. So I always like to wrap up this talk, guys, and I'm kind of speeding through this today just because I want to be respectful to your guys' time. So 10 things I know now, but I wish someone would have pointed out to me when I was your age and put into words. So the reason I always talk about these is that when I get done with these, everything I talk about, you're going to know. It's just the light bulb may not be like fully on yet. Okay? So number 10. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. You know, it's one of those things, guys, where I don't know how many of you are dorky enough like me to write goals down, but your likelihood of accomplishing things in life goes up by like 87% when you write it down, okay? And so when you have a plan and you figure out where you want to go to, it's much easier to attack and work towards that process. Number 9, be confident but not cocky, okay? The older I get, the more I can't stand to be around arrogant people, okay? I love people that have confidence. I'd like to pop people in the mouth that are cocky, all right? I don't handle it well. I can tell I'm getting older because it's getting worse as I get older. But the reason I always talk about this one is the fact that when I went to school at the University of Iowa, and I was going through Hy-Vee checking out, and there was a Glamour magazine that had on the front of the Glamour magazine, everybody remember, you know, the aisles are there and the expensive magazines are there, and there was a thing that said, men that smile are 50% more attractive than men that don't. And I'm like, I gotta smile all the time, okay? And so it's one of those things where I say that jokingly, but really it doesn't take any more energy to smile. You know, be confident in yourself, but don't be cocky, all right? I think that's a big life lesson that I've learned. Number 8, seek to understand, then be understood. Everyone has a story. And I share with you a story that was shared with me that I think is very fitting to this. So there was a gentleman on an airplane ride for about 3 hours. And what happened was he sat down next to another gentleman and they started a conversation. And what happened was over the next 3 hours, this gentleman listened and had a sincere interest in this other person's story. And so for 3 hours, this guy told him about his work and his family and his life mission and everything. And they got to the end of the plane ride, and this guy stood up, and he gave him a hug, and he's like, man, you are the nicest guy I've ever met. And the reason I share this is the fact that this guy really had no idea if this guy was nice at all. Because for the last 3 hours, all he did was talk about himself. He has no idea anything about this guy. But because he listened, he really felt like this guy cared and was a true, genuine person. So the moral of that story to me is that if you seek to understand other stories and what their passions are, and you have a desire to help them get to where they want to get to, it becomes so much easier for you to maybe get what you want as well too. But too often we kind of lead with what we want, and we're kind of self-centered, and it doesn't work that way. So again, seek to understand, then seek to understand, then be understood. Number 7. So God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And the reason was to use them in that proportion. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you think about it, 1, people don't really want to hear your story going back to number 8. And 2, I would quiz you, have you ever learned anything when you were talking? You don't learn when you're talking. You learn when you listen. And so if you're going to keep propelling yourself in life and keep improving, you need to focus on, am I listening and hearing everything they're saying? Instead of figuring out, hey, what's my response to this? What do I need to say? All right? Life's more about listening than it is talking. Along with that, one of my other favorite quotes with this is that you don't know what you don't know. I know, deep, right? You don't know what you don't know. I love that quote. Number 6, I'm sorry. This comes from my buddy in the back of the room, Matt Schulte. You can have bad minutes, but don't let bad minutes turn into bad days. If you think about things, guys, usually what happens is there's usually one thing in your day that can totally throw you off. I don't know if it's, you know, your car's out of gas, you get a flat tire, your cell phone's dead, whatever it is, all of a sudden, a couple bad minutes can be your blame for the rest of your bad day. It's okay to have bad minutes, just don't let them turn into bad days. Number 6, number 5. Accountability without a relationship is merely harassment. Again, love this quote. Accountability is healthy for all of us. If you need help losing weight, if you need help, listening, if you need help spiritually, if you need help with fitness, accountability is healthy, okay? But you have to have a relationship with that person first before the accountability is actually going to work. Otherwise, you're just going to have harassment, you're going to hate them, they're going to hate you, and everybody walks away upset, okay? So really make sure that people that you respect and are holding you accountable, you have a deep relationship with as well too. Number 4, scars. Nobody really likes scars. You think about if you have a scar on your hand or a scar on your arm or a scar on your leg, every time you look at that scar, it triggers something mentally as far as an experience. It may be good, it may be bad. But what I would challenge you on is, have you learned from that scar? What did it teach you? Where did it put you? Did it change the way you viewed things? If it did, they're great scars. Scars aren't bad, it's just whether or not you learn from them makes the big difference. Number 3, in my humble opinion, your goal in life should be to perform, not to win or lose. The reason I always talk about this one is the fact that life today is very much about winning and losing. In fact, on the way up here today, the Little League team from Chicago just got stripped of their Little League World Series title from a year ago because they used an ineligible player, knowingly. So they cheated. And the reason I find this point very, very interesting, guys, is the fact that now at age 36, it's very easy for me to see how life has been at times about winning and losing. And really, I think the goal should be to perform the way you're capable of. I've seen people that win that don't perform the way they're capable of. I've also seen people lose, or what they think is a loss, and they may have performed the way they were capable of. And so as you think about your talents and your abilities, really the goal should be to perform the best way you're capable of and respect whatever results you get, right? If it's all about winning, you're going to end up cutting corners, cheating, doing stupid stuff, and again, it's not worth it long term. So again, focus on the performance. Don't worry about the winning and losing so much. If you do have a loss, learn from it. Get better from it. Number 2, passion and emotion. So my favorite quote with this is that I've never seen anyone in a street fight with a straight face. It's kind of a joke, but if you think about, I think about the old Rocky movies. Okay, when they're going to town, you never saw those guys boxing with a straight face, right? If you're going to get anywhere in life, you have to have passion and emotion, right? Sometimes it's going to be raw crying. Sometimes it's going to be elated, happy, but you will never get to where you want to get to without passion and emotion, right? You have to have it. And the number one thing that I wish someone would have told me when I was your age is have impact. It's one of those things, we're going back to the whole performance thing and passion and emotion. Guys, none of us are getting out of this life alive. So in a way, that's a loss, okay? What I would challenge you to think about is, what do I want people to think, say, and feel about me the day before I'm buried? What impact do I want to have on my family, my friends, my community, the world? What impact could I have if I was performing the way I was capable of, and I had work ethic, and I had passion and emotion? Just think of how much impact you could have. Probably one of my 2 idols is a gentleman that lives in Kansas City, and he was burned as a boy. And he had a story on the internet a week ago about the fact that he had someone when he was very, very young come to his bedside and encourage him to fight and stay alive. He had severe burns over all his body. And what a essentially happened was there was another young man in a hospital at the exact same time, having the exact same issues, and the gentleman that came to motivate them both was the exact same guy, and no one knew. And so the impact that this guy had ended up, both these gentlemen, credit this gentleman, was saving their life just because he came and talked to them. This guy had no idea, okay? You never know what type of impact you're going to have on people, and so my encouragement would be that whatever you do, make sure you're going to have a positive impact. So with that, that's kind of my my story today. If you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions. One thing I will say is that, you know, for those of you that are familiar with the financial services business, Jessica is here and would be a great resource to get you connected. Maybe you don't want to do exactly what we do, but you know, don't be afraid to network with her. If it's banking you want, real estate you want, being a teacher, you know, whatever it is, she probably has connections. So I would make her a resource and utilize her as much as you can. So, any questions from the crowd today? You guys are here because you had to be here, not because you want to be, right? Good, awesome. Thank you.